Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Politics here at The Hindu with me, Nistula Hebbar, where we unpack the news making the headlines in domestic politics. End of last week, we saw a momentous decision taken by the Samyukta Kisan Morcha, the umbrella organization of 30 farmer organizations protesting against the farm laws, which have been subsequently withdrawn by the union government, to finally agree to terms with the government and pull up stakes from the Singhu border, Ghazipur border, areas bordering Delhi, which have become synonymous as protest sites for these farmers' groups and across the country, and make a victorious march home after having had most of their demands accepted by the government. This particular movement, 380 days, that the farmer groups camped on the outskirts of Delhi and captured the imagination of the entire nation, has lessons for politics going ahead, both in the short term, in terms of the elections in 5 states early next year, and also in the long term, in terms of consolidation, solidarity, and agitation. Just what these lessons are going to be, or are likely to be, is the subject of this episode of Talking Politics. The Samyukta Kisan Morcha over the weekend, just before the weekend, in fact, decided unilaterally that 30 farmers' organizations under this umbrella organization basically declared that they have accepted the government's good intentions in terms of withdrawing the three farm laws. They were withdrawn, in fact, during the winter session of Parliament, the first 2-3 days of winter session of Parliament, and the President himself has signed the bill, and therefore the farm laws as they were do not exist. The controversial farm laws as they were, the three of them, they don't exist anymore. There were certain other demands made by the Samyukta Kisan Morcha, and a written assurance from the Agriculture Ministry basically persuaded the Samyukta Kisan Morcha to end its siege of Delhi at Ghazipur and Singhu borders, which we have been seeing for the last 380 days. A victory march was held over the weekend where farmers kind of pulled up stakes, took off their tents, packed them up, got onto their tractors and went home. Now, what were these demands additional to the withdrawal of the three farm laws that persuaded the SKM to call off this protest? One, of course, was the withdrawal of all criminal cases, the police cases that have been filed against protesters during the course of this protest. Basically, the fear was that if the farmers' groups, buoyed by the fact that the government had withdrawn the three farm laws, would go back home, they would still have to face police harassment on cases which had been filed when the protest was going on. Number two, the question of compensation to the kin of those who had been killed during the course of this protest. Now, the opposition groups and farmers' groups themselves have put a figure of about 700 farmers who have lost their lives during the course of this protest. The government has been disputing this figure, but in the letter given by the Agriculture Ministry to the farmers' groups, it is stated that in principle, the Uttar Pradesh and Haryana government have agreed to provide compensation to those farmers from those states who lost their lives during the course of this protest. Number three, of course, would be the removal of punitive sections from electricity acts. And number four would be the removal of criminal liability of farmers in the case of stubble burning. These are the four major sort of conditions on which the farmers decided to withdraw. The big condition that the farmers have laid before the government, of course, is the question of the minimum support price for all crops, and to be for minimum support price, the mechanism of the minimum support price to be enshrined in the statute books. Now, for that, the Modi government had already announced on the day that Prime Minister Modi announced the withdrawal of the three farm acts, that they will be setting up a committee with all stakeholders to discuss issues like MSP, whether it should be statutory or not, crop diversification, farmers' income, and other issues related to agriculture and reform in the agriculture sector. So the government on its part has asked farmers' groups to nominate people who they think represent them the best to be a part of this committee. That committee has not been fully constituted yet. Now, these are all. This is all the what in terms of what happened last week in the long saga of the farmers' movement and their victorious march back home. Now, what are the lessons in terms of primarily the political lessons that need to be drawn from this long movement? Well, first of all, that as previous Indian governments have found out, it's very difficult for any government to come up against a united farmers group. This happened in 1988 as well, when farmer leader Tikayat came to the boat club in the heart of Delhi, New Delhi, and laid siege to it, asking for concessions on certain demands that farmers' groups had made. And then Rajiv Gandhi government, with a majority of over 400 Lok Sabha seats, had to concede those demands as well. So, first, of course, is that you can't have a top-down approach when it comes to agricultural reforms or anything to do with farmers, etc. You need to take them on board. You need to take people who represent them on board, etc., etc., and farmers groups to be united in terms of pushing for their demands. Number two, and that seems important for me, is what happens in the short term in terms of elections. There are states like Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Manipur, Goa, etc., are going into polls early next year, and especially the states of UP and Punjab are very crucial for both the fortunes of the BJP and the Congress. And many felt that the farmers' movement basically gained a lot of traction because of impending elections in these two states, because multiple surveys, sources said, showed the BJP that in Western UP there was a growing sense of solidarity between Jat groups and the farmers, agricultural groups and agricultural groups in Punjab, etc. Now in Punjab, the BJP doesn't have much stake, but in an interview given to me, Dushyant Gautam, the BJP National General Secretary in charge of polls in Punjab, told me very frankly that even though the BJP is a minor partner to any political sort of electoral situation in Punjab, they faced, BJP leaders, workers, etc., faced a social problem, a social boycott, which was extremely dangerous in terms of social harmony in a very sensitive state like Punjab, and therefore a withdrawal like this was required to build back some of the goodwill between various communities in the state. In UP, the Western UP, as I said, seemed to be a pain point, electoral pain point. Surveys that the BJP had commissioned showed it up again and again. Now, there are two problems that the BJP now has to sort out with regard to Western UP. One, of course, is to win back the Jat vote, which had been solidly behind it in the 2014 and the 2017 elections and even the 2019 elections, general elections, and seemed to be drifting towards its old party like the Rashtriya Lok Dal. Jayant Chaudhary, who's leading the Rashtriya Lok Dal, led big, huge panchayats in Western UP, Mahapanchayats, in support of the farmers' groups, and has tied up with the Samajwadi Party led by Akhilesh Yadav in Uttar Pradesh. So therefore, of course, the basic first issue for the BJP is to make sure that their Jat vote does not disperse, that the communication that, the bills have now been withdrawn, and therefore BJP's anti-farmer image that was being built up in these areas should not be paid attention to. Number two, of course, is a slightly more tricky problem for the BJP, is to persuade its own followers that they have not been let down. There are many people who feel that they fought with their neighbors, especially in rural areas, etc. They fought with their neighbors, their friends, etc., in support of these tree farm laws, basically bought the propaganda around it and advocated it to their own people, fought with their friends, and now they are feeling very, very let down, feeling that if the government had to withdraw this these 3 farm laws, they could have done it much earlier and spared everybody a lot of heartburn. Now, these are the 2 big problems that are facing the BJP as far as the farm law withdrawal and subsequent elections are concerned. For the opposition, the lesson here is pretty clear that, and of course, a bit of an optimism there that the BJP or the Modi led government, with its majority in the Lok Sabha, can be taken on by a united protest. And the flip side of it, of course, is that one needs to organize on the streets for it. And secondly, that identity issues are not primarily the religious identity issues are not the only thing that stir the voter of this country or stir the people of this country to agitate. There are other bread butter issues also around which political narratives can be built. All of these lessons, of course, are there to see. And the second part of what I just said, the short-term implications for the elections, whether these work out or not, we will come to know, I think, by March or April of next year. And therefore, this 380-day protest by farmers, its impact in terms of the short term will be evident very, very soon. For the long term, of course, we may have to wait till 2024. That's all I have for you this week. We have been tracking the farmers' protest through multiple episodes of Talking Politics. Farmers groups themselves have said that they will be meeting again on January 15th to see just how sincere the government has been in terms of fulfilling the demands of farmers groups, which finally persuaded them to go back home. So who knows, maybe we will be back with another episode post Jan 15th. But till then, till next week, in fact, thank you for watching.